not remember any promises. I do not remember anything.
Majesty.
I promise you that I won't give this unworthy woman.
Behind Tuptim's eyes is the price of daring to dream differently in a system that doesn't allow choices. The deeper we look into the inner worlds of Anna and the King of Siam, the clearer it becomes that this isn't just a story of songs and spectacle, but a quiet negotiation between emotion, freedom, and power. Things we were far too young to understand back then.
I most certainly am not.
In this video, we're going to strip away the glossy musical surface and step into their real world to uncover 17 chilling truths you never noticed as a child about The King and I, 1956, Part 1. The Golden Palace is not heaven, but a gilded cage. From the moment Anna walks in, the Siamese palace is more than just the glitter of gold and silk. Every carved pillar and long corridor that seems to swallow her footsteps reminds her this is the domain of a single will. When the royal children kneel, foreheads pressed to the floor, Anna quietly tightens her grip on the thin shawl in her hand, a gesture she repeats every time she feels smaller than her own shadow. She hears the king's bare feet on the stone floor, quick, sharp steps like a string of exclamation marks. The feeling of being watched, weighed, measured in every movement dries her throat, but she still holds her back straight, trying to keep her shoulders from trembling. Part of her is curious, part of her is fascinated, but deep inside, Anna understands she has stepped into a gilded cage where every smile has conditions and every word can become an offense. Part 2. Anna's smile is a thin shield before a storm of power. When she speaks with the king, Anna usually offers a polite smile, her voice soft and measured. That's not just the manners of an English lady, it's the thin shield she raises against his bursts of temper. Every time he barks, etc., etc., her hand tightens around her fan, then loosens, then tightens again, a repeated habit she uses to keep her breathing steady. She knows a single wrong phrase, one push too hard about the contract or the house, could ignite his anger. The danger isn't shown through graphic images, but through the long silence after he speaks, the way courtiers bow so low their faces almost vanish into the floor. Anna uses her smile and gentle words to hide the truth that every conversation feels like walking on thin ice. Part 3. Civilized isn't just a word, it's a double-edged knife in Anna's mind. In their talks, Anna uses the word civilized more than once as an invisible measuring stick between the world she came from and the one she stands in. Every time the word leaves her mouth, she feels the tension in the air. The king's eyes flash, shoulders around him stiffen. Even she, after saying it, feels the need to swallow hard, as if the word itself has sharp edges. Inside, Anna believes in her ideals of education, but she also realizes every judgment she makes can become an insult. At night, alone in her room, she thinks of the children's eyes, afraid yet curious, and asks herself, is she helping them open their minds, or is she quietly laying down the map of a new kind of imposition? The repeated echo of civilized in Anna's thoughts slowly becomes an uncomfortable whisper, reminding her no civilization is innocent when it walks into someone else's land. Part 4. Children bowing low and the lesson of fear taught from the cradle. Anna loves the royal children, the wide eyes, the innocent questions about the world beyond the palace gates. But each time they crawl forward, kneel, and press their foreheads to the floor before their father, she finds herself unable to breathe. When she teaches them to stand tall, to read letters, to imagine distant countries, that image is always interrupted by the sight of their small bodies flattening against the ground under layers of silk. The gesture of tightening her shawl, of lacing her fingers together at her waist returns, a reflex each time the inner conflict rises. Anna knows she is only a guest with no right to erase those rituals, but the horrifying realization is in the pattern she sees. Obedience is learned earlier than any alphabet. The children's smiles in class, their laughter at amusing lessons always carry a long shadow of a fear they are never allowed to name. Part 5. The King and the Loneliness of the Man Who Stands Above Everyone. To outsiders, the king is the embodiment of absolute power. His word is law. His decision is fate. But through Anna's eyes, he often appears like an enormous child, proud, restless, and unsure. When he paces back and forth, bare feet slapping the floor, hands slicing the air, his "a king is a king" sounds both firm and like a mantra said to calm himself. As night falls, the gap between the throne and the man grows clearer. He wants to be seen as modern, scientific, a friend of great nations, yet he fears losing the unquestioned reverence his court has built around him. The repeated flashes of sudden anger, harsh commands, then silent moments where he stares at his own hands, all sketch a portrait of someone deeply lonely at the top, terrified that if he bows too much, the throne will vanish beneath him. Part 6. The House That Never Gets Built, and the Feeling of Hanging in Mid-Air. Anna comes to Siam for something very concrete, a house of her own for her and her son, as promised. Every time she mentions that house, her voice tightens, her hand squeezes her skirt, a repeated habit that shows this isn't just about a roof, but about dignity, about whether words can be trusted. When the king dodges the issue or shifts to more important matters, Anna feels as if an invisible rope is suspending her between earth and sky. She doesn't fully belong to the palace, but she's no longer an outsider either. Each delay, each later, offered in place of action, tells her she's living in a gray zone, where the line between honored guest and controlled subject is dangerously thin. The repeated unfulfilled promise becomes a thorn in her heart, a reminder that even a clear contract can evaporate in a world where the king himself is the law. Part 7. The Western Banquet and the Polite Mask, hiding the fear of losing face. The king's attempt to throw a Western-style banquet looks comical at first. Awkward etiquette, uncomfortable gestures. But from Anna's angle, it is a silent battle with his fear of being ridiculed in front of the world. As she teaches him how to bow, how to shake hands, how to welcome guests, she notices how every movement is stiff, as if he's wearing armor that doesn't quite fit. Her polite smile returns, but this time it hides the fact she is watching a monarch perform civilization by someone else's script. Every nod, every very good she offers is also a reassurance to herself that she isn't turning a king into a joke, but helping him save face. Yet the repetition of these rehearsal scenes makes it impossible for Anna to ignore a truth. To be accepted, this man must step onto a stage built by others. Part 8. Tuptim and the Price of Daring to Dream Differently. Whenever Tuptim appears, Anna senses a vague dread in the young woman's eyes, shy but burning with something fierce. As Tuptim tells her story, each word feels like a step along a blade. She wants to love, to be free, yet is bound by invisible cords of the system. Anna listens, fingers threaded together at her chest. The familiar gesture she makes when she knows she's about to hear a pain she cannot fix. What's frightening isn't any graphic punishment on screen, but the lasting helplessness. Anna understands that with all her goodwill and ideals, she has no power to rewrite the fate of a gift in this palace. And every time Tuptim bows her head, her voice grows quiet, then forces itself into a small smile. Anna recognizes something of herself. Women trying to hold on to dignity in a game whose rules were written by someone else. Part 9. Anna's repeated departures and the circle she can't break. More than once, Anna decides to leave Siam. Each time, she packs her things, her eyes drawn to the sea, to a wider world where promises are kept. But then a crisis, a plea, a child's eyes pull her back. The rhythm repeats, anger, resolve to leave. Someone begs her. She stays. Inside, she feels ashamed of her own softness and wounded by it, yet also hurt by how deeply she cares for the people here. Every suitcase closed, then reopened. Every ship that almost becomes her escape and then recedes is a small cut to her pride. She is no longer merely passing through, but she still cannot call this place home. That loop teaches her a bitter truth. Some chains are forged out of affection and are harder to break than iron. Part 10. The dance and the dangerous moment of closeness. When Anna and the king take each other's hands and dance the polka, it plays like a charming, almost playful scene. But inside Anna, every spin is a test of boundaries. His hand is warm, firm, pulling her into his orbit. Her skirt sweeps the floor. Her heartbeat quickens. For a moment, all distances of culture, power, and gender blur. Right after, an uneasy feeling slides in. Did she just cross a line that should have stayed uncrossed? The repeated moments when they face each other, arguing, falling into silence, flaring up, then unexpectedly understanding one another, make this dance the peak of a dangerous emotional arc. She realizes she is not just a teacher, but a mirror the king uses to look for another version of himself, and that always carries the risk of hurting them both. Part 11. The letter to the Queen and the shame of being out of step with history. The king asks Anna to help him write a letter to the Queen of England. Every sentence weighed, polished, smoothed. Anna feels proud of his trust, yet something twists inside as she senses his fear of being labeled barbaric or backward. Each time he asks, "In England, how is it? What do they think?" She has to choose her words carefully, knowing each one can either deepen or soothe his wounded pride. The letter writing becomes a recurring ritual, reminding her that in the world's eyes, Siam is always on trial. She, an Englishwoman, suddenly becomes the bridge, but also the mirror. Watching his hand tremble slightly over the page, Anna understands that the true horror for a king is not simply losing power in the moment, but being remembered in history as the king who did not modernize in time. Part 12. Prayers. Anna doesn't dare to finish on long nights after her son is asleep. Anna sits by a flickering candle, eyes on the dark garden outside. Many times she starts to pray for the children, for the king, for herself, but the words get stuck in her throat. Though she believes in God, she cannot help wondering if she has the right to ask anything for a land where she is only a guest. Instead of complete prayers, she repeats fragments, please, if only, what if, and then lets them trail off. It's the pattern of a faith pulled in two directions, wanting to trust that there is justice beyond this world, yet knowing history often feels indifferent. The horror here comes not from violence, but from the feeling that her words, whether spoken to God or to the king, all have limits and may simply be carried away by the wind before anyone fully hears them. Part 13. Anna's bowing head and the silent bargaining with her pride. Many times Anna has to bow, has to say, "Your Majesty," has to step back when the king steps forward. Each gesture is a quiet negotiation with her pride, the pride of a woman who believes in equality and individual worth. The familiar squeezing of her shawl, the folding of her hands, returns as she holds herself back from exploding. Gradually, the repetition of those bows creates a fine crack inside. She cannot help asking herself, how much of who I am I giving up just to stand here, to teach, to protect the children, to speak with this man? The film doesn't need to show any bodily coercion. It's enough to watch someone used to standing straight learn to back away, to stay silent at the right moment, to understand the price of surviving in a foreign hierarchy of power. Part 14. Rumors, shadows, and the heavy silence in the palace. Not every fear makes it to the screen in plain sight. As Anna walks down long corridors, she hears whispers die the moment she passes. Rumors of politics, enemies, foreign threats, never fully spoken, yet hanging like cold mist over every conversation. Whenever she hears ceremonial music in the distance, she cannot be sure whether it's for a celebration or for a verdict just pronounced. That ambiguity repeats, keeping her mind in a constant state of alert. She learns to read meaning, not from words, but from eyes, postures, the pauses after sentences. The frightening part is realizing people can live for years in a place where every important thing happens behind closed doors, and even those closest to the center of power are left guessing what tomorrow will bring. Part 15. The king's final illness and regrets that never quite get spoken. When the king falls ill, the power that once filled the palace begins to melt away in sweat and labored breathing. Anna sees the man who proudly walked barefoot through his halls, now lying small amid curtains and candlelight. She remembers their fights, the times she turned her back, the journeys she almost took. This time, her hand on her shawl is not to hold back anger, but to keep herself from crying. The what-ifs echo in her mind. If she had been softer, if he had been less proud, if the world had given them more time. That chain of questions with no answer is its own quiet horror. The sense that every chance to change has already slipped away, and people only truly understand each other a little better when the curtain is already coming down. Part 16. The Crown Prince, the lesson of succession, and the circle of power that won't easily break. When the Crown Prince steps up to claim responsibility, Anna looks at him with an old and new fear. She still sees the shy boy who once sat in her classroom, but his voice now strains to sound as firm as his father's. New rules are read aloud. Promises of change are made, but Anna knows history does not shift on the strength of one speech. She remembers the patterns already rooted deep: obedience, fear, saving face, the dread of being seen as behind. No matter how much he wants to reform, the prince must confront the same ghosts that haunted his father. Watching him bow, then straighten his back and force himself to stand taller, Anna feels both hope and a chill. The circle of power may thin, but that doesn't mean it will break. Part 17. The departing ship and the realization that exile isn't just distance. On the ship, as Siam shrinks into the horizon, the sea wind tugs at Anna's shawl, and she tightens her grip on its edge one last time. She is leaving, as she had planned to do so many times, but it doesn't feel like victory. Part of her remains trapped in those dim corridors, in the noisy classroom, in the room where a lonely king wrestled with his age.